it's really, really important that I speak to specifics about who's involved and the serious, serious harm that's involved, not only to students and all public services. I heard this gentleman speak, but what's really behind it. Again, my name is Kathleen Carroll. I am an attorney. I work for the state of California at the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and I initiated a state audit of the agency after I observed numerous legal violations and conflicts of interest and a number of other things, and reported what I observed to the head of the California State Senate, was Darrell Steinberg, and the audit was initiated in 2010. The auditors arrived on site, and I was assisting them and showing them documents, going over the processes, and they were there. But to make a long story short, I was quickly shoved out the door, put on paid leave for 2 months, and then one day FedEx came to my door and handed me my dismissal papers. And I'm here today because there is very, very serious harm happening to public teachers, public school teachers. After the last 3 years, I've been doing a lot of research. Several people have been involved in doing public record requests. And very, very recently, I noticed a number of teachers are literally being put on the internet with their name and that they have a mental disorder. So not only are they blacklisted now from teaching ever again, they probably won't ever get a job at McDonald's. So not only does that violate privacy, and it violates just common sense, ethical privacy violations. It violates the American with Disabilities Act. It's numerous legal violations. And I actually got 2 documents of one person that actually was put on the internet, and I looked at the signature. One was from 1998 and one was from 2009, and the signatures look very different. And I say this because I have reason to believe that there might have been some forgery going on at the commission. And if that's not true, in one particular case, and I'm going to name names, not teachers' names because they've already been harmed enough, but I'm going to name the names of attorneys that were contracted by CTA. Many people may not realize, but the California Teachers Association, they contract with private law firms to represent teachers, either through dismissal actions or through licensing actions, which is the agency I worked for. And one attorney in Fresno, Ernest Tuttle, and I'm going to mention his name because I hope he's watching this, his client agreed to sign a document. Again, name is on the internet with mental disorder, and the settlement agreement, which I have in my purse, literally says that the person agrees to be suspended and they don't come back until they mandatory go through a psychological evaluation from a board-certified psychiatrist. And then they have to submit that psychiatry report to CTC, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, the licensing agency that I worked for. And then if CTC doesn't like it, they can mandate at the expense of the teacher. So the teacher's already paid for one psych eval. Now the CTC can say, we don't like that psych eval, and we still think you're not fit to teach. So now you have to go get another psych eval. And guess what? The commission now gets to choose the psychiatrist, and you have to pay for that. Now, what lawyer would agree to have their client sign something like that that would be all over the internet? So either there's forgery going on, and I hope Mr. Tuttle's watching this, or Mr. Tuttle should probably be disbarred for agreeing to such a thing. Because I can tell you, I would never agree to something like that. And no, would any of you agree to have your name on the internet, your name on the internet with mental disorder? Would any of you agree to that? Would any of you tell your friends to agree to that? I mean, it's absolute outrage, and that's happening. Over and over and over again, I am getting calls from teachers who are literally in abject poverty. Some are homeless, some are absolutely destitute. They have been blacklisted. And this is very, very serious. So this is what's happening to teachers on a massive level. So now what's happening to children, I want to talk specifically about that because I heard Ms. Weingarten's name mentioned. Okay, she's no innocent here. She's on the board of directors of a company called InBloom Inc. And you need to understand that. It's not just a neoliberal movement, there's also a counter neoconservative movement. Because when I live up in Sacramento, I literally have talked to teachers across the state. I have talked to parents across the state and from outside the state. I have talked to both left and right, and there are good people on both the left and the right. There are. There are teachers who are Republicans who are just as upset about this mad testing as there are Democrats and everyone in between. There are Tea Partiers that are upset. There are parents that said this has got to stop. So we can't make it a left thing and a right thing. Wall Street is dividing us. Everyone's upset about this. And let me tell you about the testing, which is really, really evil. In 2000, so there's a database of files of students with private information, private medical information, student record data information, and this has all been constructed on an infrastructure. The database was built by the for-profit Amplify Education, which is run by who? School reformer Joel Klein. Who's Joel Klein? He was the New York City school chancellor. Do you see the connection? And who's it owned by? Rupert Murdoch. Remember Mr. Murdoch with the scandals in the UK with everyone's cell phones being privately tapped into? Well, now he's doing it with student data. So it's owned by Rupert Murdoch's company News Corp, and the data is being run by a new nonprofit called InBloom Inc. Where does Randi Weingarten come in? She sits on the advisory board of InBloom Inc., along with Margaret Spellings, who's the current president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So that's why we're seeing all this private-public partnerships. And we talk about money, but it's more important to talk about the specifics and who's really taking in the money. And Bob Wise and Stacy Childress, who's the Deputy Director of Innovation at Bill and Melinda Gates. But in 2011, the U.S. Department of Education, which I believe should be completely dismantled, and I say that because it's only serving the interest of the public education industry. It's not serving the interest of the public good. So I really think it should be dismantled. And so do the Republicans. And I'm not one. I'm actually embarrassed to say I'm a registered Democrat. And I say that because as I tracked all these names and I'm looking at all the people, a lot of Democrats keep coming up. Eli Broad, Bill Gates. We didn't mention Reed Hastings, but Reed Hastings was a former president of the California State Board of Education, the founder of Netflix. You may think, well, Netflix, you know, this movie, DVD, what does that have to do with education? Everything. The majority of the shareholders on the Netflix, when you go in and you look at shareholders, because with the SEC they have to, you know, file whether it's 5% or over. A lot of them are majority shareholders in K-12 Inc., which is the largest online education company in the country, second only to Connections Academy, which is owned by Pearson, which is doing all this crazy ass, sorry, my language, testing. And it's really, the purpose is to defund. When you destabilize and you defund, then you have chaos. Chaos is an opportunity to make money. So it's a moneymaker. K-12 Inc. is a publicly traded company, so is Green Dot. Green Dot is the largest charter management organization here in the state of California. And Green Dot and K-12 Inc., a lot of the shareholders of Netflix, because according to articles, Reed Hastings is no longer a shareholder. They are major shareholders in that. So I suspect Netflix is probably going to be in the streaming online education business if they aren't already, either through training EMT people or training teachers or training whatever else that they're planning to privatize to displace the really morally bankrupt issue, because especially when you talk about teachers being up there on the internet or mining private student data, it's morally bankrupt. And if we look really back in time, also the civil rights movement, it's never fully integrated. Schools were never fully integrated. It's a joke. It's even an absolute joke. And then with the passage of ADA, special needs students, we were supposed to get 40% subsidized from the federal government. They've never done that. They've never done that, and special needs students has always been they've always got the bottom of the barrel, always. So low-income people and special needs students, they're the losers in all this, and teachers are being seriously harmed. So it's really, really important to understand the people involved. I mean, Pearson, let me just tell you what Pearson owns. It's so crazy. I mean, I've got like so many things at home, we're just connecting all this dots. But I mean, Pearson, like I said, owns Connections Academy, second largest online education company in the country, Penguin Group, the publishers at Penguin Group, Adobe, Scott Forsman, Longman, Bortman, Harcourt, Puffin, Prentice Hall, Allen and Bankin. They own the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, which I hear people talking about, oh, their NAEP scores are rising. Well, Pearson owns that, and they manipulate data. They manipulate data. I've heard teachers say that the tests have nothing to do with what they're teaching in the class. Is that purposeful? So we have, I mean, why can't teachers who are actually in the classroom teaching make up their own tests? I mean, when I went to school, and I don't think I'm that old, I mean, They made up their own tests. Why do we need some corporate Pearson who's traded on the New York Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange? Why do we need some company to come in? Because it's money. It's money. They're also involved with design of the Common Core, which no one seems to really know what it is, what the standards are. And it was optional whether California had to adopt the Common Core standards or not. Prop 30 was nothing more than giving money to law enforcement so we can become more of a fascist police state. And if you think it's for education, you need to drink some coffee and wake up, because it had nothing to do with education. It is for law enforcement, and God, if you were up in Sacramento and you looked at the CHP building, you'd be, huh? Yeah, you'd see where the money's going. It's not going to education, because if it's going to educate, why do we keep seeing schools closing? Sacramento just had 9 elementary schools closing. So yeah, it is everywhere. It's not just California. And is there good news on the front? There is, but it's not with the teachers union. Unfortunately, they've sold out. Now, are there good people in the union? Hopefully there are. But I have heard way too many stories now where teachers and these unions are literally teachers on the internet, mental disorders. Does that sound like the union is doing the right thing? No. Those people they are completely blacklisted. And when I first saw it, I was crying. I was like, oh my God, and people have called me crying. People have called me saying they're suicidal, they don't know what to do. It's really serious, you guys. It's really serious. The privacy issues that are being violated, it's really become very fascist. And when I talk about history, I mean, there's a lot of parallels here with the Nazi regime. I mean, you know, we're not gassing people, but they let people starve. And that's what they're doing. If they don't like what you're saying, or if they don't like the truth, they're basically just weeding you out. They don't care if you ever get a job again. They certainly don't care about those people they put on the internet that have mental disorders. And that's not just happening with teachers. It's happening with nurses. It's happening with other public services. Because I have gotten a lot of calls. because there have been a lot of people who've lost their license in one area and then they want to go into teaching, and it's really ugly. I cannot stress enough. And when I think about what's working and what isn't, Seattle's a success story. Seattle parents and teachers got together, and the teachers went on strike. They went off the door, and they said they refused to administer the MAT test. They refused to administer the standardized tests. So there's no success story right now in Chicago or here in California. But in Seattle, there's a success story, and we need to watch the success stories, because that's the only thing that's going to do any good. There's so much money. It's trillions of dollars, not billions. It's trillions of dollars, this testing industry and the technology industry. And so they don't want anyone rocking the boat. But we need to think, it not only is just the money aspect, it's there's more serious aspects. They're really blacklisting people. They're invading privacy. It's become a fascist regime, and where they really are just they're hurting people. It's just, I can't I can't begin to stress it enough. I think I've seen so much, but I wanted to get that out today because I don't hear anyone talking about that. CTA hired law firms who have literally not only sold teachers down the river. To me, it's much more serious than that, what they've done. They have literally blacklisted people where they have placed in such poverty. And when we hear a lot now about